Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Qul huwa Allahu ahadun Allahu samad lam yalid wa lam yulad wa lam yakul lahu kufuwan ahad.
يا أيها المسلمون والمسلمات قال الله سبحانه وتعالى يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. All those who believe fear Allah should be feared.
This is the view from inside of a mosque. The Masjid is located in New York City. Today is Friday and Imam is giving a speech as khutbah. Hundreds of Muslims every week come to the mosque and listen to him. This man, there was a time when he was not a Muslim. He was leading a criminal life and even been in prison for a while. Today, mashallah, alhamdulillah, he is winning a lot of love and respect from his listeners. I was wondering, how did it happen? I asked him to sit down with me. He smiled and shook his hand. Let's find what did he say. Brother, what's your name and where were you born? Brother.
My name is Abul, Baraa, Muhammad Amreeki, and I'm born in Queens, New York, Jamaica, Queens, New York.
Thank you. Can you tell us about your childhood life and a little bit about your parents?
I grew up in Jamaica, Queens, New York, and I grew up in the single household. My father died when I was very young, and I grew up in a Christian background. My mother was a very dedicated Christian. You know, she was from the South, from Mississippi. So she didn't have a lot of education growing up. So when she came to New York, her education was the church, basically. And my mother's about in her 70s now. So she never finished school. And people down south in those years, they used to work in the fields and things like that. Her father was a farmer. So she was very educated in the church when she came to New York. That was really her education, how to read, write, and things like that. So when I grew up, from my mother's background and Christian background, going to church. And I was a person growing up who loves to read, who loves to learn about things, and you know, this is basically was I had the average American child growing up. I had the average American child experience growing up, basically. You know, playing sports, school, having all these events and things like this.
Okay. Brother, how old were you when you were attracted to Islam? And what was the turning point?
I accepted Islam when I was 19 years old. No, when I was 20 years old.
20?
20.
Okay.
And when I was 19 years old, I was incarcerated for a few years. And I took Shahada when I was incarcerated at 20 years old. And the things that made me really become Muslim is that, like I said, I grew up in New York in the 90s. Inshallah, I'll be 40 years old. So in the 90s, growing up in America, you had a lot of hip hop culture, music culture, the partying culture, the drug culture. This is something that's really big in us, you know, the youth, American youths. So due to this culture and this society growing up, I end up getting in trouble all the time, going to jail, getting arrested. So when I was about 19 years old, I caught a case, and it was for robbery, and I had to go to trial. But before that, you know, I wasn't like an average person in my neighborhood. I had money because my father died when I was young, and I had an inheritance. So a lot of these things, I didn't have to really do them. I was doing it because everybody else was doing them. So one day, how I get my interest about Islam. My first interest about Islam is before I went to prison. It was from in high school, learning about global history in high school, and growing up in America, particularly in New York, and being black. You learn in the education system in America, everything is really white culture. When I got to high school, I had a teacher who was Caucasian, and he used to teach global history. He let people know that there is a society besides Caucasian people. So we used to learn about the history of Middle East, Pakistan, India. When I learned from the ancient history, we learned about Sayyidina Ayyubi and the Crusades. And then when he taught us then that the Muslim world educated Europe, the European Renaissance. When the Crusaders came, when they invaded the Muslims, they learned from the Muslims mathematics, science, soap, spoon, fork, hygiene, all these things. I said, oh, there was a society that was more advanced than European society. So this got my first interest about Islam. When I was in high school, I had a good friend of mine, and he was a close friend. He was one of my neighbors. We used to study martial arts together. So this same year I was studying this subject, my friend had the same background like me. But one time, one day, he started getting like problems with people. And he wasn't that person, he wasn't like me. He's a guy who go to school. I used to cut school. I used to have the girlfriends, the friends. He wasn't like that. He was a guy going to school, and he's somebody who wanted to fit in, but he was doing better than me in school. But he had some problems with people, and one day his father just disappeared. His father said, "I'm going to the store and never coming back." So I seen him one day in school. He tried to kill himself in school, tried to jump out the window.
His dad?
My friend.
Oh, your friend. Okay.
He tried to jump out the window in school, and I asked him, why do you jump out the window? What make you kill yourself? He said, "Oh man, you get all the girls, I don't." I said to him, "You crazy." So for a while, he was going through some real stuff. One day somebody cut him in his neck for no reason. One day he was coming from school, people used to bother him, and so one day for a while I didn't see him. Then one day, after I got arrested, I had all these court cases. I had to go to court all the time. I used to be in the streets. One day, like a month or two passed by. I see this guy in the street walking down the street. This guy had light in his face. And I just looked and I said, this guy looks very familiar. He has light in his face. And the guy had a long garment on and a white cap. So he got closer and closer and closer. And he stopped in front of me. And he said, "Hey, this is me, so-and-so." His name, we used to call him Junebug. His name is Robbie. He said, "Yo, I'm Muslim now." And he said that you need this type of change also. So he said, let's go to your house. So I took him to my house, and he told me about Islam. I had changed him, and he moved to Georgia at that time. And he was telling me about his experience being Muslim, and the things I had learned about Islam from the past in school. These things start clicking in my head. I said, I need this change for myself, but I didn't accept Islam. I had too much friends, girlfriends, money. So he left, and when he left from my house that night. I was going to trial. I was 19 years old. I was going to trial for robbing somebody. And I said to myself in my room, talking to God, to myself, I said, I need this type of change. The only way I could change now, because I got money, too many friends, drugs, this. Only way I could change is if I go to prison, I could become Muslim. I said, that's the only way. It's in my conscience. I was thinking like this. I didn't want to go to prison, but I said, this is the way I could make this change. Right. Eventually, I was going to court and they found me guilty. Oh. So when they found me guilty, I remember that day. I never forget it. My blood pressure was so high. I was like 19 years old, going on 20 then. When I got into prison, when I got found guilty, I was in jail waiting to get sentenced. And they put me in one jail, which is closed now, is in Queens House. I start everywhere around me is Muslims
In jail.
in jail.
Wow.
The inmates, some of the inmates, the correction officers, Muslim.
Oh.
So one day, one correction officer, he said to me, he said, man, you look like a smart guy. You look like you'd be a good Muslim. I said, I have my own religion. Now in prison and in jail, people don't want to become Muslim because it's known the Muslim have power somewhat. People respect Muslims in jail.
Yeah, yeah.
So some people who are cowards become Muslim because they want protection from the Muslim. So I said, I know. I told him I have my own religion. That was the time I did soul searching about my original beliefs as being a Christian. So what I started doing then is I said I need some change. I really didn't focus too much on Islam then because I didn't have the opportunity, and I had somebody had some pride. I had like pride. I'm not going to go ask somebody, but I was looking. So what happened is I started reading the Bible more, and I started reading. So let me read from the beginning to the end of the book. When I started reading, I used to go to church. Grew up in church. I see a lot of contradictions when it comes to the Old Testament and New Testament. Old Testament talks about God being one. Have no other God beside me. No, the Lord, the God of Israel is one God. Then you get in the New Testament, it talks about the Trinity. This is a big contradiction, right? So I started going to different type of Christian services. I went to the Baptist, Presbyterian, Catholic, and I started asking basic questions about the book, their book. So I would ask them, when Jesus was on the cross, and Jesus is God, when he was on the cross, where did he go when he was dead? Where did he go? How can you kill God? Where did he go? Yeah. Some Christians would say they make up a story. They have a story. It's not in a book. It said he went to the dominion of heaven and hell, like the Abar Zakabaria, and he took the key of heaven and hell from the devil.
They have no answer, but they just
make one up. It's not in a book. So I said, so that don't make sense. If Jesus is God, how can the devil have the key of heaven and hell? It don't make no sense. Yeah. All right. So I started reading more. Then one day I met a Muslim inmate. And he had like a lot of time. He got sentenced to a lot of time in prison. And he used to talk to me a little bit. So he said, yo, I have this book. You want to read it? Quran. I used to read it. I picked it up. I read the translation, but I didn't understand it. Yeah, it's not like the Bible. Yeah. So what happened is, look how Allah works. Allah sent me to another jail. Get ready to go do time now. Right? I got sentenced. The judge sentenced me to 2.5 to 5 years. And I remember the day that he sentenced me. He said that even if you're not guilty, you're guilty from doing some other stuff that you didn't get caught doing. This would be a good punishment for you. All right? So I got sentenced. And that point I want to mention at the end, what he did say did benefit me. I did benefit. And I'm going to tell you why later on. So they sent me to Rikers Island. It's called the 4 building. This is where the people go before they go to do time upstate. People who got sentenced now are going to do their time. Now, when I went to the 4 building, Allah works in a mysterious way. Allah put me in front of me. The guy sleeping on next in front of me, Muslim. The guy sitting on the slide of me is Muslim. Wow. The guy sitting next to him is Muslim. Wow. Huh?
Allah's plan, huh?
Allah's plan. Now, from them 3, there was more. They wasn't really practicing their religion. They was not practicing Islam. They wasn't making salah. So there was one of them. He was originally from Harlem, and he used to gamble. He used to make dice and gamble. And I always laugh when I hear this. My own story. I tell people I laugh because in Islam, gambling is haram. Making dice and playing with dice is haram. Yeah. He used to do this. So we used to gamble. So he used to make fun of me. We used to joke around. He's like, man, you got 4 eyes, man. You a smart guy, man. I don't even know why you in here. He said, man, stop playing, man. What you do? What you do? What you do to get in here? He used to joke around. So we used to gamble. So he said to me one day, you be a good Muslim. You're a smart guy. You be a good Muslim. I said, I have my own faith. So one day we was gambling. Right. And in prison, they don't have money. They don't have cash. So they gamble. They use cigarettes for money. Right. So he won a lot of my cigarettes. So he said to me, yo, I'll give you some back, but on one condition. You have to read something about Islam. And he said that when you read it, he said, I promise you, I will never talk to you again about being a Muslim and you having 4 eyes and you a nerd and you be a good Muslim the way you look. I said, okay, I will read it. So he came with a verse in Quran, and there's a verse in Quran when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, related to the translation, that Jesus and his mother ate and slept, and Allah does not need no sleep. He said, when you read this, and I read it, he said that if you believe it, you're going to submit to it. He said, is that true? I said, yeah, Jesus was a human being. His mother ate and slept, and Allah does not need no rest. Yes. That makes sense. That's the next one. He said, okay, I got something else for you. Yes. He got sort of to Ikhlas. He said, and then he read it. I read the translation. Kuhu Allahu Ahad. Say Allah, He is one. He begets not, nor is He begotten. Allah was Samad. Allah is self-sufficient. Yes. He begets not, nor is He begotten. And there's none like Him. When I read that, everything I learned about Christianity, it was like that short chapter, few lines, it has blew it all out the water. It hit me hard. He said, you would have something else after that? He got a book and he told me, what is Tawheed of Islam? The 3 aspects of Islam. Tawheed al-Rububiyyah, the oneness of the lordship of Allah, the oneness of the worship of Allah, and the names and the attributes, the uniqueness in the names and the attributes of Allah. I was very interested. He taught me the 5 pillars of Islam. I didn't convert them. It was hard. Now, with those guys who's Muslim around me, the one on my left, one guy on my other side was a Christian guy. And he should listen to the stuff we used to talk about. And he said, you're Christian, man. You don't have to become...
So he was pulling you back.
Right. He said, you're Christian. You don't have to be Muslim to be okay. And I said, nah, it's not about that. I'm not scared. I'm not scared. I went to prison for robbing and fighting and stuff like that. I said, I'm not scared. And I was a person who, when I grew up, I used to fight a lot. So I said, fighting is like a switch. You got to turn it on and off. So I'm not scared. But that chapter in the Quran, Surah Ikhlas, I couldn't sleep for 2 weeks. At nighttime, I used to sweat. It was the summertime. Oh, Lord. And I said, think about that verse in Quran all night long. And when I used to think about the verses in the Quran, I think about everything I learned in Christianity. Jesus is a man. God has 3 and 2 1. Jesus died on the cross for everybody. Comparison. But every time I go back to that verse, Allah is one. He is self-sufficient. He has no weakness, no needs, no food. He has no sons, no daughters. He has no need for them. And there's nothing like him. At those few lines, everything I learned about Christianity, it's like it was on the scale. That one surah and everything I learned about Christianity from the Bible and a book and what they believe in the Trinity on the scale. And Surah to Ikhlas was weighing it out. It was so heavy. 2 weeks, I couldn't sleep. I used to sweat at nighttime.
This surah is very powerful.
I never heard anything like this in my whole life. And I used to sweat all night. Sometimes I wouldn't sleep. I'd just be thinking about this for 2 weeks. So the guy who was talking to me, eventually, he left to go to his prison time. Right? But I had them other guys who were Muslim. So another one who was there, he said, talk to me about Islam, about Salah, about wudu, and about how you become a Muslim. So me and him left Rikers Island and we went to do our time upstate New York. So when we left, he said, are you ready to become Muslim? He said, if you've been reading this, you've been studying this, are you ready? So I eventually took my Shahada. But when that verse was given me to Quran, it was so heavy. And then I used to reflect then. When I read that verse in Quran, Surah Ikhlas, that had me going from that first day. When I had 2 weeks, I couldn't sleep. 2 weeks straight at nighttime. I used to be hot. I used to be sweating. I used to be turning, thinking about this verse, comparing to everything I learned about Christianity. Everything. And I wasn't worrying about what my mother think. But my friends think because I was in prison now, my friends don't care about me no more. I'm doing the time. They don't call, they don't write, they don't visit. Then I thought about my friend who converted to Islam before me. And I said to myself, this is what I needed. So when I became Muslim in prison, Allah blessed me. Allah blessed me. You know, from then I started meeting different imams who work in the prison and teach about Islam. And I started learning more and more and more and more. So this is how I converted to Islam.
Subhanallah, what a power of Surah Ikhlas. Brother, you almost made me cry. Now let's talk about changes. How did Islam change your life?
Okay, so when I became Muslim, when I converted to Islam, everything changed from me. Every single thing about me. Listen, before I was Muslim, I used to worry about, because I used to run the streets, if I'm going to get shot or killed, I'm going to get AIDS from some girl I'm with, I'm going to get a girl some pregnant, and I pay child support. I would always have some worries. Always had problems, always stressed. And only at that time I was 18, 19 years old, right? Yeah. When I became Muslim, all my stress went away. When I was in prison, Allah did test me. And when I was in prison, there was a time I was tested, actually. You know, we had this Imam, he used to always come, and he said, if you really believe in Islam, you really believe in Allah, Allah going to test you. And I did. I had money. I bought the seerah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I never read it before. I was a new Muslim. I bought summarized version of Sahih Bukhari. I bought the Noble Quran. And I read for that 1 year in there, I read each book, especially the bio of the Prophet, I read about 5 times. You know, 5 times I read the bio of the Prophet. Because when I was Muslim, I just learned about who was Allah first. What is Tawheed? What is the oneness of Allah? So when I read the seerah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, this really changed my life completely. Remember, I was a criminal. When I went in there, I was a criminal. I was a nuisance in my society. I wasn't a person who don't cry. When I read the bio of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when I read before his hijrah to Medina, when the people of Mecca made an offer to him, they said, if you abandon this call, we make you a king. We give you women. We make you a noble man. And he said to them, if you could give me the sun in one hand and the moon in the other, I will never abandon Islam. That made me cry. Because Allah, he could have had the dunya right there. Imagine if many of us get this type of test, we would take that worldly matter, this money, this wealth, the woman, we would take this. Because me growing up in American society, that's what we want. You want women, you want power, we want money. So when I seen that, I'm comparing that to many situations of people in America. When I was running the streets and doing these things, because I wanted money, I wanted women, I wanted power. So when the Prophet ﷺ was tested with this, he said, if you could give me the sun in one hand and the moon in the other, I will never abandon this way. When I read that, my fate in Islam was sealed. I learned only about Allah. I didn't know nothing about Prophet Muhammad. They know nothing about Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam too much. So when I read that and I was in there for that 1 year reading that, my heart was sealed on Islam. So even though it was a bad situation, something good came out of it. So before I was Muslim, when I became Muslim, everything changed for me. Lifestyle change. I never thought about before getting married. Did I marry? I have kids now. When I became Muslim, came out of prison, I have no more police stopping me in the street no more. Police not asking me to empty my pocket. Police not asking where is your ID at. Maybe I get FBI once in a blue moon knock on my door now. FBI do knock on my door once in a while. Homeland Security do knock on my door because I'm an Imam. I travel. They do knock on my door, but I don't get pulled over by the police in the street. I don't get harassed by the police in the street. Even one day I was walking to visit my mother and the police said, hey. And I'm looking, so what this guy want? He said, hey, you over there, hey, you. I said, man, who's raising this voice talking to me like that? I turned around, it's the police. He said, hey, you, what? I said, hey, how can I help you? I thought he want to stop me. He said, you didn't hear me giving you salams? I said, no. He said, what, you don't want to give me salams because I'm police? I said, oh, wa alaikum salam, rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I said, okay. So my experience after Islam was good, but I was tested even when I came out.
MashaAllah, MashaAllah. Where did you go to learn more about Islam and how Allah Almighty did open the doors for you?
Okay, alhamdulillah. About my studies as Imam in the Masjid and how I learned Arabic language and things like this. I moved to Canada for 2 years. When I finished my stuff, I said I want to get out to the United States for a little while. So I went to Canada for about 2 years. When I was in Canada, I met a sheikh who graduated from Medina University. And his origin is from South Africa.
In Toronto?
No, Vancouver.
Oh, Vancouver.
Vancouver,
Okay.
British Columbia.
Okay.
The name of the place was called Dar Medina, and the Sheikh Yunus, he graduated from Medina University. When I was there and I met him, his origin is from South Africa. He's Indian, origins from South Africa. And when I went to Canada, the Islam in Canada is better than Islam in America.
No doubt.
In America we have one Masjid Bengali, one Masjid Pakistani, one Masjid American, one Masjid Yemeni, one Masjid Egypt.
Yes.
In Canada, most of the masjids are together, all nationalities.
Unity.
There's unity.
Yes.
So I used to go to his lessons all the time. And before I went there, I really wanted to learn Arabic before I even went to Canada. So I started basically with my first Arabic teacher. Actually, is from South America, from Argentina. He also graduated from Medina University. And I started learning the basic of how to read Quran and some things about Arabic grammar and language. But it wasn't enough.
But it's not easy. Right?
It's not easy.
Totally different language and different scripts and this. And
That is very hard. But that was just my introduction. When I went to Canada, and I started meeting Muslims from different nationalities. Canadians are very friendly, not like America. They're very friendly. So in the Masjid there, I had friends like from Arab-speaking countries who were very open to teach about Arabic language. I started learning the little basic, simple things, but it wasn't enough. I came back to New York, stayed there about 2 years. I wasn't getting enough because it's not like I'm studying Arabic every day with somebody. Maybe once a week, twice a week with a teacher one-on-one, and not getting everything. So when I came back to New York, I had a friend of mine who learned Arabic here, never traveled overseas, and he told me a lot about Arabic grammar. But I still wasn't fluent or had accuracy in the language. So when I came back from Canada, I was broke, basically. I had no money. I studied with one of my friends, a lot of things about Arabic grammar, and he told me all that he was able to teach me, that I need to go somewhere else to further my knowledge about Arabic language. So, I used to look for ways, and I had no money. Most Islamic universities that take people, like in Saudi, you have to be between the age of 20 and 25. So at that time, I was like maybe 26, 27, 28.
Okay.
About 28 years old, around 27, 28. So I really wanted to study Arabic. My friend of mine, I met in Canada, who studied in one of the universities in Saudi. He knew about a scholarship program in Egypt that would take basically Western Muslims who are new to Islam and let them learn Arabic in Egypt. All you have to do is pay your way. So my friend said, hey, there's a program where you can study Arabic. And one of my other friends from Canada was already there studying Arabic language. So he said, you could go to this program, but you just need to get your own plane ticket and food money. I said, wow, this is my opportunity, but I don't have the money for the plane ticket. So Allah opened doors. Somebody found the scholarship for me, but I have to just find my way there. Our brother in ICNA, I told him what happened. He said, no problem, I pay your plane ticket. Two-way ticket.
He must be a doctor or businessman.
His name is Qamar.
Qamar?
Brother, yeah, his son is a doctor.
Yeah.
He's from Pakistan.
Mashallah.
Yeah, his son is a doctor. Okay. So mashallah, he gave me the money. He bought the plane ticket for me.
Mashallah.
Two-way, open return.
Okay.
Then I said, okay, I got the plane ticket, but I don't have money for the food and stuff. How I'm going to survive?
Yeah.
Allah opened up doors more.
Subhanallah.
One of my friends who I study Arabic with, he's an architect.
Wow. Oh, mashallah, mashallah.
He gave me $600.
Subhanallah. Subhanallah.
That guy I told you I seen on the bus that was offending, he knew a brother from Pakistan. He gave me a job in Domino's. He owned the Domino's. Wow. He gave me a job until I left. Allah opened the doors. So I got the money. And then other people start giving me $100 there, $200 is. Allah tested me more.
Yes.
A bigger test. Yeah. I told you what? Before Islam, what is it? You want power, money, and women.
Yes.
So I want to marry this sister from Bangladesh.
Oh.
And she told me no.
Yeah.
She said, "Oh, my family wouldn't accept you because you're American." So once I got accepted, I got the money. The day my friend announced, one of my teachers announced to everybody in the class that I'm going away. She said, "You know what? I accept your offer." And she's leaving for Bangladesh the next day, so she wanted to know, do I accept or not?
Yeah.
And I told her no, because I'm going away now.
Yeah.
So there's another test on top of that. There's another test.
Yeah.
So I went to Egypt, and that was a whole nother test altogether. I got to study Arabic. I stayed in the school there for 6 months at first. I stayed there 6 months. It was like an intensive program. And studying Arabic in Egypt is culture shock. I've been Muslim in America, not Muslim in a Muslim country now. So this is the first Muslim country I got to visit.
Right.
So Egypt was like, Cairo, Egypt is like New York, but more upside down. So you had to get accustomed to a lot of things.
Yeah.
So I started studying Arabic in the school. It was beautiful. Hearing the Quran, hearing the dawn in the street 5 times a day.
Right.
Seeing Muslims everywhere, seeing Muslim women outside, seeing Muslims everywhere. Right? And this really affected me. Good. It was good for me.
Yeah.
So I said to myself, the school got closed down. Egypt government, a lot of times, shut these schools down. Permits are not proper, or Egyptian government is just like that. Sometimes they just close the school down.
Okay.
Because maybe some people in there, they don't want to know who's in there studying. They want to know these things.
Oh, okay.
So they closed the school down, or they didn't have their permit. They closed them down. So I said to myself, let me go back to the U.S. Since I've been in Egypt for 6 months. I know how to survive here on my own now. I don't have to be in one of these programs where they have a place for me to live. I could go somewhere else in Egypt and study it. Now I know a little bit of the language, understand the culture. But I said this time, when I come back, let me go live with Egyptian people and not live with other Western Muslims like me. Because when you have other Westerners learning Arabic, we're like talking to each other all the time. Even though, like I have roommates from France, Germany, they don't speak English, so we have to speak Arabic, right?
So this
is good for me. You have to, but I want to learn the Arab culture too.
Subhanallah, Subhanallah. Let's go to the next question. Alhamdulillah, Islam is becoming the most popular religion in the world. Here in America, a lot of people, a big number of people, are converting to Islam in prisons. What do you think? Why is it so? Why the people in prison are more interested to Islam?
Why inmates convert to Islam in prison a lot on a large number or on a large scale? The answer to that is, you got to look at the story of Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam. And this is a very good story because Yusuf alayhi salam, when he was in prison, this is the time to reflect. So most people that when they're in prison, they are reflecting on their life. They're reflecting how to make change. They're reflecting what to do with themselves. Now, if the church is not answering their problems when they're free in the streets, then it's not solving their problems. So now, when a person now is in prison, he has the time to think outside the box. He has time to think on what is positive. Now, Islam, believe it or not, Islam is something that changes peoples. No matter what level you are at, if you're sincere, it changes peoples. And we see these examples with the companions of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Look at Umar before he was Muslim. People used to fear him. Right? He was known for being strong and people feared him. So when he converted to Islam, he raised the status of the Muslim, and he raised his status. So Islam changes people for the better. So a lot of times when people go to prison now, they're learning. Islam teach you about what? Teach you about the Creator. Teach you about the Prophet Muhammad. The Quran teaches about how to be civilized. Islam teaches about how to clean yourself when you go to the bathroom. Islam teaches about how to worship Allah, how to deal with your spouse, how to deal with your children, how to deal with your community, how to deal with a government, how to build a government.
And in prison, they get the more chance to read.
Yes,
Yeah,
because
more
in prison you
time
got
to
more
read.
time in
Yeah,
prison.
yeah, okay.
And a lot of prisons now they have imams who are from outside,
Right.
has qualifications. They're teaching people Islam, and they're calling people to Islam. And a lot of the inmates are also calling people to Islam.
All right.
Thank you, brother. Do you have any message or nasiha for new Muslims?
Advise them or how you.
Our advice for new Muslims,
Yeah, yeah.
basically, who
Yeah,
convert
yeah.
to Islam.
Yeah, yeah.
My first advice, when I convert to Islam, the number one thing that you will find that when I convert to Islam, and it came out, I had my freedom. There's no one following up with what new Muslims do. So my advice to new Muslims is that when they convert to Islam and they learn about Islam, they need to find a place where they can learn Islam from authentic sources, from people who understand these converts who converted to Islam, understand their background, culturally, where they're coming from in society, and know how to deal with them and have some programs for new Muslims. Because even here, in this masjid, I get a lot of new shahadas, majority women.
Over here.
Yeah, in this masjid, yes. I have a few shahadas I gave in this particular masjid. So a lot of the new Muslims, that their struggle is, okay, how I deal with my family that is not Muslim. How do I deal with for a woman who converts to Islam, she start wearing hijab, okay, how I go to work now and tell my boss, I wear this thing now, I'm Muslim.
Yeah.
How I deal with my boss and my co-worker, right? So these are the struggles for new Muslims. So my advice for new Muslims that they learn Islam first from authentic sources, from Quran and Sunnah. And they find the masjid that is teaching peoples, new Muslims, and having classes. And stay with the classes, and stay with learning, and take things one step at a time. You find a person convert to Islam, and he's just a new Muslim, but he's trying to be up here with the learning, but his foundations he don't have. Many times these people, they try to do this, they lose their Islam, they leave Islam altogether. All right? They they try to learn things like up here about Islamic knowledge, but their basics, foundation of Islam, they don't have. A lot of times they overburden themselves, and they stop practicing Islam, or they fall back. They're Muslims, but they fall back on their practices of Islam. So my advice for new Muslims that they stick with a community that's learning. That's teaching people about Islam from Quran and Sunnah. Sometimes you have communities, as me, I remember I became a new Muslim, you have some masjids I consider to be cultural masjids. They're not really teaching people. They're not focusing on educating people. They might come from a certain country and they have a certain culture, and they understand Islam from a cultural point of view.
Yeah.
Sometimes the new Muslim, when it comes to Islam, he's learning some things, but it's cultural things.
It's cultural thing. Yeah.
And then if he get in a quarrel with a person, one of the peoples, he might say, "Oh, I don't want this no more,"
Yeah. Yeah.
or he start getting the wrong understanding of Islam. So I always advise those Muslim, find somebody or master the community that is teaching and educating people, and you learn and stick with these type of programs.
Shukran, Akhi. My next question is, how do you reach the people for dawah, for tabligh?
Islam.
Yeah. What you are doing for that?
Like in this particular master we just started, we have a dawah table.
Yesterday.
Yeah, yesterday. You seen it the other day, right?
Yeah.
We had a dawah table. These are actually the pamphlets for it right here. Dawah, as I told the brothers in the announcement, dawah is a amana. It's a trust. And so dawah is something that you just can't go out and do. You have to have knowledge about what you're calling people to. Because people were actually crazy questions. Like the brother told me yesterday, somebody said that he's Allah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and the brother said he was trying to figure out how to respond to him. And the brother said, the guy started cursing him out, but I wasn't with them. I was giving somebody a brother who had some problems, I was helping him out. So dawah is something that you have to be trained with. Know the people you're talking to, and know how to address them.
Yeah.
It's a job. It's
very
work.
hard.
It's
a
not
very
easy.
easy
It's not
work.
easy.
Yeah,
You know, it's not easy.
Yeah.
Yes, brother. I'm coming to the last question. As you already have told me a lot about yourself, but I need to know a little bit more about your educational achievements, your accomplishments, your Islamic education that make you fit for Imamat and Khatabat. Thank you.
Some things about my bio and who I study with, and some things that I study in topics. You know, even I have it here. You can see. You know, like I said, I got to study in Cordoba, which is an Arabic institute in Egypt. I didn't have the opportunity to study in Islamic university, which I really wanted, because every time I went away to study, my mother, she's elderly, and I'm the only child. I always have to come back to do something for her, and she's elderly. So, my first trip to Egypt, I studied in the institute. My second trip to Egypt, I stayed there longer, a year, a little over a year, but altogether about 2 years. I got an opportunity to study for Sheikh in his village. His name is Sheikh Abdul Badawi. He's a doctor in fiqh. So I lived in his village and studied in his masjid with his students for about 6 months, 6, 7 months. And this is where my Arabic really grew. Studying Arabic in the school and now learning the Arabic related to the religious studies is something else now. Because there's a little bit difficulty and things like that. So this is where my really foundation of learning started in this particular place. I got to study tafsir, usul tafsir. I got to study about fiqh. I got to study about aqidah. I learned a lot from the sheikh. And then when I came back to the U.S. after the 2 years, I continued my studies. Now, since I understand Arabic, a lot about Arabic language, I'm still learning. I'm still growing, because like in Islam, you never graduate. So I still study online. I have a sheikh from Egypt who is a doctor in Sharia law online, 101. Me and him go 101. And I study a lot of books like fiqh, aqidah, Arabic language. So I continue my studies. Just especially when I'm working now as an Imam in the Masjid, I can't now just say, okay, I made it here and that's it. No, I have to further the knowledge, because people come here and have problems.
Sheikh, thank you very much for this conversation. I really, really appreciate your time. Shukran, Jazakallah, and thank you all viewers for watching this video. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا